Welcome to part 1, episode 21 of Firon's Commentaries of System Shock 2. You could totally picture Goggles with his tongue hanging out doing this. Who says you can't have fun on the job, right? Now then, current objective, head to deck 4 to activate the override terminal so that SHODAN can go to the Rickenbacker. Then go to engine core to set it to overload so that she can destroy the Von Braun once the Rickenbacker's detached. And as our own little objective, I have to make a quick stop at Psi to do some research and to also drop off some stuff and pick up some new items. From here on out, it's going to be pretty, action-oriented. Because this is where the game really starts to get harder. And this is where decisions you've made early on really do count for something. For example, whether or not you made any effort to conserve your supplies wisely, especially your ammunition, health supplies, and your nanite count, obviously. If any of those are in low supply, it's really going to kick you in the ass later in the game. Especially on higher difficulties where everything is usually more expensive and harder to find, and also less effective. In my case, the only thing that really matters in terms of ammunition is how many Psi Hypos I have. I have more than enough health items, so that really isn't much of a worry to me at all. Although it's better to be safe than sorry. And nanite count, I usually have way more than enough nanites by the end of the game anyway, even on impossible. So I'm in a good spot. Especially if I have 10 or more Psi Hypos.
I can now transfer my forces to the Rickenbacker. Proceed to the engine core on the engineering.
Yep, just as I thought.
There you can set the core overload to my control by entering the authorized destruct code.
Well, there goes Sarah.
Once you have done that, we may proceed to the Rickenbacker. Separate the two ships and exterminate this infestation.
SHODAN, there's one problem with that, though. There's no guarantee that the Rickenbacker is free of infection. In fact, Diego, who's the captain of that ship, was also infected. So I fail to believe that destroying only the Von Braun is really going to solve our problems. Not only that, but the Rickenbacker is a less capable ship. Even if it does have weapons that the Von Braun absolutely lacks. And if you're wondering why I ran all the way over here, I wanted to grab some chemicals real quick. Of course, many never want to make anything easy for me, do they? This is where I really tried to research as much as I could, because there were a few items that I researched that would turn out to be really useful later in the game. Although, in certain runs, they're not quite as useful. Considering how many times I've been shot by a shotgun, you'd think I'd be full of holes and buckshot and my skin like shredded all over the place. I must be made of like titanium or something. But seriously, the amount of shotgun hybrids in this area is just plain ridiculous. There's like too many of them. Then again, this is where the security force was housed, so it does make a lot of sense. And now we're in engineering. Don't necessarily know why I took the long way, but I guess I wanted to relive old memories. As I always look at the backtracking at this point in the game as a way to get one last look at the Von Braun. At decks you've visited before with new equipment and such, just before you move on to the Rickenbacker. I don't really think Looking Glass Studios or Irrational Games really thought about it, but I always get the idea that the feeling of nostalgia you get from revisiting old decks of the ship kind of overcame the annoyance of how tedious backtracking can be. And on the right side, the backtracking isn't necessarily that long. In all honesty, backtracking through this ship isn't really that bad. I mean, it's sometimes pretty cool to revisit old areas. Yeah, I decided to cut her off there. She basically just states that we're going off to the Rickenbacker, telling us something that we already really know. And that's me, just me making my quick escape. Alright, back in Psi. While I was posting on strangebedfellows.de or systemshock.org, whatever you want to call it, notice how the elevator is placed next to this maintenance shaft, but when you go down to engineering, the elevator is located nowhere near the maintenance shaft. But if any of you guys have ever played the game Dead Space, which itself is based loosely off System Shock 2, they usually show the side diagram of the Ishimura during loading screens as you travel between the different decks of the ship. And as it shows, each of the decks are organized in a way so that they're like side by side rather than layered on top of one another. This is usually to ensure that the ship is compact and uses, as less space as possible. Because think about it, if you ever look at the maps of the decks of the Von Braun, they're all a bit irregular, how everything's organized. So if you were to layer the decks on top of one another, you would have an unnecessarily large hull to have a congruent shape, while at the same time having lots of empty space for areas where each of the decks don't cover. If you put them together to make them compact, you would need the elevator to travel horizontally as well as vertically, which I believe the elevator does in this game, just like the tram on board the Ishimura. Now then, at this point I decided I was going to research those two different kinds of annulid organ implants that I have right now in my inventory. One of them looks like a blue brain and the other one looks like a pink brain. Both of them require a research skill of 3, so it was a little bit of a risky investment because I had never researched them or used them before ever until this point, like this playthrough in particular. But they turned out to actually be much more useful than I originally anticipated, especially the Psi organ, which was the blue one. I'll tell you right now that what it does is that it takes 1/4 of the damage I receive and takes it out of my Psi points. And as you already know, the Psi bar is clearly much bigger than the HP bar. And since it takes 1/4 of the damage out, it's like a 25% boost to my defense. So it has its value, especially in confrontations with big groups of enemies or with really powerful enemies. But just like my powered armor, it runs on a limited supply of something, in this case Psi points. If I'm out of Psi points, it's pretty useless. Enough said. But then again, why would I let myself run out of Psi points and let it stay that way? That would just render me completely helpless, pretty much.
Please make your selection.
And a little explanation of the other organ. Basically what it does is that it allows me to interact with a worm pile and heal myself completely by doing so, removing the worm pile in the process. Not as useful as the blue one, but occasionally it helps me to conserve my health supplies. There actually is a third annulid organ implant. This one has like an orange color, and it's a lot more rare than the first two, but its use is also much more specialized. What happens is that when equipped, it heals you over time, 1 HP every 30 seconds. But it also protects you from toxins from annulids. I'm not sure if that applies to the arachnids, but I'm pretty sure it protects you from the toxins that come from certain eggs, which definitely has its value when you're searching them for annulid healing organs. However, the major drawback of this organ is that if you remove it while you're using it, it will completely intoxicate you, which requires you to use 2 anti-tox hypos if you don't want to die and respawn in a bioreconstruction device. But at the point that you find this organ, I don't really think you're going to have a bioreconstruction device. Anyhow, in other news, I'll be releasing a few new episodes of System Shock 2 Bits and Extras, one of which discusses my theory on the ending of this game. why I don't want to discuss it in my main commentary is because this commentary is meant to be newbie friendly, so I don't want to, like, point out a bunch of spoilers, though I might have let it slip a few times. But expect to see that in a few enemy know-hows, as well as possibly a few more unique episodes of bits and extras. Anyhow, another message I'd like to say is that, although I really do like words of encouragement from you guys, the fact that you guys actually like my series came as a surprise to me the first time I heard, rather zealous comments about my series. I really do appreciate criticisms about my series, constructive criticism that points out any flaws in my commentary, like what I should be doing more of or what I should be doing less of. And even though this commentary is something I do in my spare time as, a little bit of entertainment, this commentary is for you guys. So if you guys aren't happy with something, just let me know, and I'll see what I can do, even with my limited technology. Now then, finally we're heading off to command deck to finish what we started there. And yes, this is the last episode set in command deck.
Beware, insect. The situation has changed. They sense our intentions and are loading shuttles with their offspring. They will not escape my wrath. You must proceed to the shuttle bays on this deck and destroy those shuttles. They have a taste for your blood.
That's just like her, isn't it? To take credit for something I'm about to do. And technically, as a character, Goggles really has no motivation. Hell, I don't have any real motivation. But then again, there's the thing about them trying to kill me at every turn because I don't want to join them, so I suppose it's reason enough. And of course, it's natural human tendency to enjoy violence every now and then. Now then, our objective is rather clear. We have to kill babies. More specifically, the eggs that are inside the shuttlecrafts, by destroying the shuttlecrafts themselves, thereby sabotaging my last means of escape from the Von Braun. Killing two birds with one stone. Smart thinking by SHODAN, I guess. Keeps me set on the path that she wants me to travel. This is probably like the second time in the game, though, where you encounter a wide variety of enemies and more than your fair share of them in a single location. First time, I believe, is in hydroponics in Sector A. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Compared to later areas, this is a cakewalk. This is so easy. And I am not exaggerating, at least as hard as that is to believe. Mechanical bitch here, destroy the computer, so can't take down the shields. Can't do anything about that now, but I will be able to soon. This one, on the other hand, you don't even have to do much, really. Just deactivate the shields, and walk out, and then walk back in. Hey, Ball, can you help me with something? Yeah, just throw those stars in the fuel tank there. Yeah, that's good. Perfect. Hey, what?
My creation, once again,
whatever.
is one step ahead of you. They've managed to destroy.
How hard can it be to destroy a terminal?
Please make your selection.
Alright. This is one of the points in the game that really emphasize the idea of long-term consequences. If you squandered your nanites, and you have absolutely no way of getting more, you will not be able to hack that replicator, and of course you will not be able to get the device you need to sabotage the shield device. And another thing is, if you hacked it beforehand, therefore removing the hack option, that'll also effectively cut your game short. Duck in cover! See you in part 2, guys.